I'm making this video for those people who have Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on their door and aren't quite certain how they should respond to them. So what I'll first do is explain to you what the Jehovah's Witness standing at your doorstep ultimately wants to convince you to believe, and then provide you with the ammunition, with scriptural support and other resources which can help you to confidently give them an answer. The Jehovah's Witness who is standing at your doorstep will use all kinds of assorted techniques, including Watchtower magazines, to convince you that they are telling you Bible truths, and that these Bible truths are coming from Jesus Christ himself. What they ultimately want to convince you of is that there is an exclusive group of men who live in Brooklyn at the Watchtower headquarters who are in direct communication with Jesus Christ himself, and that they alone have been appointed to rule God's kingdom at this time. The Jehovah's Witnesses standing on your doorstep are instructed by the same very small esoteric group of men who live in Brooklyn to convince you that they are the only channel through which Jesus Christ communicates with anyone on the earth today. That outside of this organization which is benefiting from Jesus Christ himself, that you cannot be saved, and that you are doomed to perish. In fact, the Jehovah's Witnesses who are standing on your doorstep, they themselves are convinced that this is true, that it is only through this very small exclusive group of men that Jesus Christ is communicating. And if they showed any doubts within their own congregations that this was true, then they would be excommunicated, disfellowshipped, excluded from the Jehovah's Witness organization. And so they would then be shunned by the rest of their friends and even their families, their daughters, their sons, their husbands, their wives. They would be shunned. And so there's a lot of motivation for them to come to your doorstep to explain to you or convince you that this is true, that their organization is the only one who is benefiting from anything that Jesus Christ wants to communicate to people on this earth, and that there's no other way through which to obtain any kind of direction from the King of the entire universe. Once the Jehovah's Witnesses on your doorstep have captured your interest, their next step is to get you to study the Bible using books published by this same very small group of men, with the ultimate goal of convincing you that this is true, that these are the only men who have exclusive communication with Jesus Christ himself. They are the only channel through which Jesus Christ is communicating anything to the inhabitants of this world. This exclusive group of men are called the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they refer to themselves as the faithful slave. And this is in recognition of the famous Bible scripture in Matthew chapter 24 and verse 47. They say that they are the faithful slave who have already been appointed over his belongings, over Jesus Christ's belongings. You will be taught in your Bible study, if you're an interested one, that the faithful slave consists of 144,000 men, and that at the present time there are approximately 8,000 of these men left remaining on the earth today who partake at the memorial of Jesus Christ's death every Easter. Now, one very interesting thing for you to know as a householder is that of the 8,000 men who are anointed, none of them are invited to participate in any of the instruction which ultimately ends up in Jehovah's Witnesses publications. And so it really is only a very small group, exclusive group of men who live in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Bethel headquarters, who are appointed to give this instruction to the Jehovah's Witness organization. And this might be news to many Jehovah's Witnesses themselves, because some of them might actually believe that these other 8,000 men are involved. But no, they're not. They're not invited to participate. What I'm now going to do is read a few excerpts to you from a book published by this governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses called the Ministry School Book. It was published in the year 2002, and I'm going to read some excerpts from page 277 under the subtitle, "The Message We Must Proclaim." So this is what Jehovah's Witnesses are told to convince you of as a householder when they arrive at your doorstep. So here we go. Jesus exercises great authority as the one designated by God to be head of the Christian congregation. As such, he provides needed direction in harmony with God's will. When you teach others, help them to appreciate that Jesus Christ and no human is the head of the congregation. So this is what Jehovah's Witnesses are instructed to teach you at your doorstep or in a Bible study. It goes on further to say this: from your initial contact with interested ones, that's the people who are interested when they arrive at your doorstep, invite them to meetings of the local congregation where we study the Bible with the help of material provided through the faithful and discreet slave. Explain to them not only who the slave is, but also who the master is, so that they become aware of Jesus' headship. It then goes on to say, help these interested ones see that there is an organized, worldwide society operating under Christ's headship. That's what they're told to say at your doorstep and convince you, ultimately convince you to believe. Here's another quote from the January 15th, 2001 Watchtower magazine on page 21 under the subtitle, "Keep in Step with Jehovah's Organization." And it says here, kingdom interests on the earth have been entrusted to the faithful and discreet slave, which is represented by the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. Represented. They are not involved in any of the material that's published by the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. They're just represented. Here's another quote from a Watchtower magazine, this time published in 1981 on February 15th, and this is on page 19 under the heading, "Do we need help to understand the Bible?" And so here's what it says. We can benefit from this consideration. If we have once established what instrument God is using as his slave to dispense spiritual food to his people, surely Jehovah is not pleased if we receive that food as though it might contain something harmful. We should have confidence in the channel God is using. At the Brooklyn headquarters from which the Bible publications of Jehovah's Witnesses emanate, there are more mature Christian elders, both of the remnant and of the other sheep, than anywhere else upon the earth. So, did you understand that? What they're saying is that Jesus Christ is communicating with an exclusive group of men at the Brooklyn Bethel headquarters of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. They are saying that they are the only ones through whom Jesus Christ communicates to any people on the earth today. And that these men reside inside the Bethel headquarters. And that's the only place where any truths can be found which come from Jesus Christ himself. So now, back to those Jehovah's Witnesses standing on your doorstep. That is their ultimate goal, is to convince you to believe this, that there is a small group of men who live in Brooklyn, who are in direct communication with Jesus Christ. So in fact, what they're really saying is, look, here is Jesus Christ, and he's speaking to people on the earth now, and he's speaking to them inside the Brooklyn Bethel headquarters of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, and this is the only place from which you can get truths from Jesus Christ himself. There are now well over 6 million Jehovah's Witnesses around the world who are going to people's doorsteps with this ultimate goal of convincing them that these things are true. And in order to do that, they also have to be convinced that it's true. They believe it. They believe that Jesus Christ is providing instruction to this entire earth through this small group of men from somewhere deep inside the Brooklyn Bethel headquarters of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. And so with this in mind, I would now like you to very carefully listen to an important thing that Jesus Christ told us. It's in the Bible, in the book of Matthew, in the same chapter 24 and in verse 23. Listen very carefully to this. Look it up in your own Bibles so that you can be absolutely certain that what I'm now telling you is true, and you'll have all the ammunition you need to give an answer to those Jehovah's Witnesses standing at your doorstep. So listen carefully. I'm going to read this from the New World Translation of the Holy Bible, but it says almost the same thing in any kind of translation. So it's Matthew chapter 24, verse 23. This is a recording of what Jesus Christ told his righteous followers. These are the words of Jesus Christ, his warning for the end times. Here we go. Then, if anyone says to you, "Look, here is the Christ," or "There," do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise, and will give great signs and wonders, so as to mislead, if possible, even the chosen ones. Look, I have forewarned you. Therefore, if people say to you, "Look, he is in the wilderness," do not go out. "Look, he is in the inner chambers." Do not believe it. And yet, 6 million, over 6 million, Jehovah's Witnesses are going from door to door saying, "Look, here is the Christ. He's in the inner chambers of the Brooklyn Bethel headquarters, giving us instruction through a small, exclusive group of men." And so, even though Jesus Christ himself said that if someone tries to convince you to believe this, that you should not believe it, do not believe it, over 6 million Jehovah's Witnesses believe it, in direct opposition to the warning he gave us, so that we could be safe for the time of the end and keep ourselves away from any kind of misrepresentation of himself. So now you, as the person living in the house with Jehovah's Witnesses at your doorstep, understand what they're trying to convince you to believe. You should now have the ammunition and the conviction to give them a proper answer using Bible scriptures. So write down those Bible scriptures that I've quoted in this video, so that when they knock on your door, you know exactly what to say to them. Now, I quoted several Watchtower magazine articles. I'm going to put them in a blog, and where possible in the venue that you're watching this video in, I'm going to put links to that blog, so that you, as the householder, can be prepared. You can cut and paste those Watchtower magazine articles and the books that I quoted from, and have them ready for the next time a Jehovah's Witness knocks on your door. Be prepared. It really is happening. The things that Jesus Christ warned us about are really happening. Even the chosen ones are being deceived. What I'd like to do now is recap by bringing your attention to an org chart which can be found in the December 15th, 1971 Watchtower magazine. This org chart depicts the way the governing body would have you believe that Jesus Christ is communicating with them. The Jehovah's Witnesses standing on your doorstep are instructed to convince you to believe this. Please remember that the 8,000 plus other anointed ones of the faithful and discreet slave are not invited to participate, and the governing body just represents them. In fact, if any one of them was to tell you that the things I'm explaining are true, then they would be disfellowshipped, excommunicated. And so the Jehovah's Witnesses standing on your doorstep will convince you to believe that Jesus Christ is in direct communication.
Here is the Christ.
They are saying, look, here's the Christ talking to the governing body.
Here is the Christ.
From somewhere deep inside the Brooklyn Bethel headquarters of the Watchtower Bible
Look,
and
here's
Tract
the Christ.
Society.
Look, the Brooklyn Bethel.
Look,
We're in the neighborhood today, sharing some Bible truths with people and showing them our Watchtower magazines. We're glad to find you home today.
Look, here's the Christ. I have warned you.
I warned you.
There, in the Brooklyn Bethel.
Look, here's the Christ.
Do not
There.
believe it. Here is
Look.
the Christ. Do
Here
not
is the
believe
Christ.
it.
There,
Do not believe
in the inner
it.
chambers.
In the inner chamber. There.
He's in the Brooklyn Bethel,
There, in the Brooklyn
at the headquarters.
Look, here's the Christ.
That's where the governing body
Do not
is.
believe it.
He's in the inner chambers.
Do not
There.
believe it.
Look,
There
here is the Christ. There,
He's in the inner chambers.
he's at the Brooklyn
Look.
Bethel.
Here's the Christ. There.
Hi, we're in your neighborhood today
In the
to
inner
share
chambers.
some important
Do
Bible
not
truths.
believe it. There's the Christ.
Do not believe it.
Do not.
There,
Do not.
he's in the inner
There's
chambers.
the Christ. Now look.
Do not believe it. Don't believe it. Please don't believe it. Do not. I've written a book. It's called Jehovah's Witnesses, the Bible Report. In the venue that you're watching this video in, I will try and put a link to a place where you can get it. In this book, you'll see the disgusting thing standing in a holy place. You'll understand who the man of lawlessness is. You'll understand how the man of lawlessness enters the temple and how he lifts himself up above a god. You'll understand who Babylon the Great really is and why. You'll understand what the unclean expressions are and who they really gather together. Who the drunkards are and what it means to eat and drink with them. You'll see through Satan's unrighteous deception and understand how spectacularly successful it has really been.